Ready to make a difference in the lives of fathers and their families? The Show Up Dad podcast empowers the next generation of dads to lead with confidence and love. Your support and our amazing partners help us to create lasting impact. Consider donating $50, $100, or $250 to provide a dad with essential resources. And speaking of incredible partners, let us introduce you to Tallman Equipment. Since 1952, Tallman Equipment has been standing taller than the rest of competition in lineman tools. They provide top quality equipment and solutions for linemen, ensuring safety and efficiency on the job. If you're in need of reliable and durable tools, look no further than Tallman Equipment. Also, don't forget to check out our online shop at theshowupshop.myshopify.com for high quality products that support our cause. From t-shirts and hoodies, stickers, and even children's clothes, we have something for everyone. Not only will we be showing your support for our cause, but you'll also be getting a high quality product that you'll love. To learn more about what we do, visit theshowupdadfoundation.org. You can also find lineman tools at tallmanequipment.com. Thank you for your generosity, and let's empower dads and build stronger families. Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast, where we celebrate extraordinary fathers who overcome challenges and show up for their families. I'm your host, David Mendoka, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Chancellor Mills, also known as Chance, is a devoted husband, loving father to four, and recently became a proud grandfather. Chance's journey as a lineman has taken him across the country, giving him a deep appreciation for his trade. In May 2018, Chance's life took an unexpected turn when a helicopter crash left him facing unimaginable challenges. Through 9 surgeries and 7 blood transfusions, Chance's faith in God never wavered. Today, he shares his story of resilience, faith, and the strength of family bonds. Join us as Chance opens up about his journey to healing and his mission to advocate for safety in his industry. Get ready to be inspired by his unwavering spirit and determination to make a positive impact. So without further ado, let's dive into this extraordinary episode of the Show Up Dad podcast with our special guest, Chance Mills. Welcome, Chance. It's an honor to have you on here, brother.
Welcome, man. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I know we met at the Lyman rodeo, and when you shared what you did, that was very inspiring. Because us dads, and linemen, we don't feel appreciated sometimes, right? So, because we feel like we need to take care of our families, and how we know how to do that is just work, right? So, yeah. So, I'm glad we can finally connect, right? So,
yeah, for sure, man. Well, thank you once again, man. I mean, you got a crazy story to tell us, and share with our audience. So, let's get right into it, bro. Just tell us your journey as a lineman and the experiences that have shaped your appreciation for this amazing trade that we work in, brother, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I started off in 2007 in July, and I knew about linemen. In January, we had a recent ice storm here in Missouri, in Southwest Missouri, and it pretty much crippled the town. And linemen from all over come and helped us out, right? And my uncle, he used to work for the Department of Labor. So he's like, hey, you need to look into an apprenticeship program. I'm like, all right, we can do that. So he was in South Dakota at the time, and he hooked me up with a company out there. So in about July 2007, I applied for the company, and they said, all right, we'll show up in Colorado. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm 23 years old, like been at home my whole life. And so I'm getting ready to leave home, and no telling when I'm coming back, right? So come straight off the streets, just as a groundman, work my way up. Got to see a lot of beautiful countryside, right? So it was kind of cool. I didn't spend a lot of money in the line trade and the line schools, right? Because back then, and that's 2007, that was still about $15,000, and I think it's close to 30 now. So it's pretty crazy, but I was able to stayed a lot of time in like Colorado, South Dakota, North Dakota, stayed up north a lot, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the crazy thing is I had this one foreman, right? And man, I prayed every day, like he would just retire, because he was so hard on me. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, him being hard on me, he wanted me to succeed in this trade. So I was like, after I looked back on that, I was like, all right, I can appreciate that quite a bit, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, that's pretty much my journey. I
Hmm.
went into after I got done with my apprenticeship program through that company. We were able to do on the job training, so I didn't have to worry about any schooling. And then so I got a ticket through them, and then went to a couple other companies. Got tried to get closer to home, right?
Hmm.
Because I mean, 4 years being away from home, I'd come home on major holidays. So, and that wasn't much time, especially
Yeah.
16 hours away. Pretty much get a weekend at home and then got to go back. So I started trying to get closer to home. Uh, Went to a couple different companies, and then at first I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give up the line trade. I'm gonna work at home because I met my wife, my current wife now, um, and I was like, I'm gonna work in a couple factories, just make ends meet, right?
Yeah.
Well, she found my job that we'll get into here in a little bit later. Um, so, but yeah, that's kind of the backstory of where how I got into the trade and stuff like that. So,
Hmm. Now you said something that caught my interest with the guy who your foreman, right? Who is really rough on you and praying, that the guy would retire. Cause I mean, I could relate, man. I had a couple dudes that were like that. And it's like, holy smokes, this old guy, he better go away or I'm gotta go away or something. You know what I mean? Cause they're just rough.
right, yeah,
How did that affect you, being a lineman? Did you feel like you needed to pass that on and be the same way? Because I always look at it in a standpoint is, if you don't know, you don't know. And you're going to do the same thing, do exactly what you were shown. Right. And it's the same thing in fathering.
right.
So were you carrying that as well into when you became a lineman and dealing with your apprentices and stuff like that? Did you treat guys like that or did you do
I
better?
carried it a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, so a guy at my church at the time, he was a
Yeah.
retired lineman, right?
Hmm.
And he mentioned something to me, and that stuck with me throughout the years. And he said take bits and pieces of each person you work with
Hmm.
and mold it into your own way of work, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, man, that really stuck with me quite a bit. And so I've tried to do that in my line career, right? And pass that on to
Yeah.
the apprentices that I had to deal with over the
Hmm.
years, right? Because everybody has their own way of working.
Yeah.
And sometimes these younger generations, they have a faster way of doing it or a better way of doing it, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I've always told them, look, here's how I would do it. If you find a better way and a faster way, by all means, go for it, man. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah. You definitely can learn something from everyone, even if it's the way not to do it. Right.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly something that I always try to tell my apprentices. There's no such thing as not learning anything from anybody. You know what I mean? You're gonna learn something that day, even if it's not
Yes.
doing it that correct or doing it that way, so
Right. Yep.
no. Now, I know you kind of briefly touched on, this incident that happened to you, this helicopter crash that you
Mhm.
experienced it, right? Now, that must have been like a life altering event, brother. How did you find the strength to overcome the challenges that followed all that whole incident?
It was tough. I got to
Uh-huh.
tell you, because when you have something happen like that,
Mhm.
and not even necessarily even a helicopter crash, just tough times in general, right? In life. and
Mm-hmm.
fatherhood and stuff. You got two ways, two roads you can go down. You
Mm-hmm.
can go down the dark road and just bottle everything up and just kind of shelter yourself from other people, right?
Yeah.
Or you can basically accept what happened to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And find the good in things. That's the hardest part in life in general, right? And that was the hardest thing to do from my helicopter crash was find the good. I haven't found it yet. I can tell you that much, but
Yeah.
I'm working on it, trying to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were some of the events that led up to that crash, if you don't mind? Just give us a backstory, a little bit, like the events leading up to it and stuff like that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no. So we were working for a company down south in Louisiana, and
Mm-hmm.
we were inspecting all their power lines, right?
Okay.
So because it was coming into their peak season,
Mm-hmm.
so they wanted to inspect all the power lines in their grid to make sure they weren't going to have any issues whenever the heat of the summer come on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were down that system for several months. Um, it took about probably 3 months probably to inspect all the power lines. We had about four helicopters doing it all together, right? Because we were spread out between three different states. Um, so that day, the day of the crash, it was a perfect day. I mean, nothing seemed out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get that gut feeling that
Yeah.
something's wrong. Nothing happened, man. I mean, nothing. Everything was perfect. Perfect day. It was probably 50 degrees that morning, and warmed up a little bit. So it was good.
Mm-hmm.
We only had about 3 hours worth of work that day. It was a Sunday. We're going to get that done, be off the rest of the day, go relax, right?
Yeah.
We've been putting in some hours trying to get all this work done. Um, so when we were actually training a guy that was recently new to the company,
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd been with the company about 6 weeks, and I had him on my crew for about a month. So I was pretty much the foreman of the company or of the crew, right?
Yeah.
Um, so me and the boss and the pilot had talked the night before, and this was relatively easy work that we were going to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So after we inspected all the lines, the power company was like, "Hey, can you fix some of the issues that you guys have found?" And a lot of issues was just bringing the static back up to the top of the poles,
Mm-hmm.
or just adding a shackle or something like that, right? Something relatively easy. So we're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, we can do that. We can handle it." Um, so me and the pilot and one of the big bosses sat down and talked, and we're like, "Hey, perfect time for this guy to get out there and tread the waters and see how everything works, right?" Um, so the plan was we basically made a big circle um, in the airspace of what for the power lines we were going to fix that day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got on the side of the helicopter and showed him how to do things. Then we landed. We found a levee. We were out in the marsh, so it was kind of a hard spot to find hard ground
Mm-hmm.
to land the bird. So me and that guy could switch, right?
Yeah.
So I could sit in the back and train him a little bit more, let him get his hands on stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had done about two of them, and the third one we got to, um, everything was going really good, and then man, just out of the blue, just it took a turn for the worst. Um, kind of heard a pop,
Mm-hmm.
kind of set down on the arm that we were hovering above. And then the next thing I remember trying to hold on to the side of the helicopter. I
Mm-hmm.
got sucked out the passenger side of it. Um, and my lanyard was still attached to. We had 6 foot lanyards. It got stretched out to 8 feet. Um, so basically, all of the blades broke off except for one of them,
Wow.
and actually got bent over and come around and cut the tail boom off of the helicopter. And when after it did that, it grabbed me from my lanyard
Hmm.
and it sucked me up and kind of wrapped me around that main rotor blade system.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So to basically say like I should not be living today
Yeah.
is, I don't know, kind of an understatement maybe. I don't know how you would really look at it.
Hmm.
Uh, so kind of our saving grace a little bit was landing in the marsh.
Hmm.
It was pretty soft ground. Um, but the guy I was training, we lost him in the crash. The pilot survived. He walked away from everything. No, just a couple bruises
Hmm.
and I think a couple broken ribs. Um, but man, when I tell you that God was in this all the
Hmm.
way, um, have you ever seen the flight helmets that pilots wear?
Yeah.
Kind of cover the whole head, right?
Yeah.
Um, Days leading up to the accident, there was only one on the job site. The morning of, two others showed up just out of the blue,
Wow.
and then we landed and we basically crashed in some guys' backyards, and they weren't supposed to be there that day. They were supposed to be off at a race because they race cars,
Yeah.
and they had heard us working and they didn't hear us no more, so they come out to investigate to help see what was going on.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think something that devastating, God was in it the entire time, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, man, everything lined up, like you said, from them being there to help you out of that marsh
Mm-hmm.
to the helmet showing up. I mean, that's, everybody wants to see a miracle. They're expecting a miracle. But if you're paying attention, you're going to see God's grace in everything and his mercy.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, that's just an amazing story, brother. So when it wrapped you around the rotor, were you dangling? Like, was it whipping you around?
Yes.
Wow.
So when it wrapped me around, it was about one and a half times,
Yeah.
and the top of the plate is called a squash plate.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets pressed in there. I don't know with what ton press it does, but I mean it gets pressed in there, right?
Yeah.
And then there was so much force that my lanyard had got wrapped in around in between that and was actually peeling that apart.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was pretty intense. And I didn't obviously know that at the time, after I
Yeah.
saw pictures, but so it was pretty intense to see that. And one of the last things I remember was like trying to hold on to the side of the helicopter so I didn't get sucked out.
Yeah.
And I remember my fingertips hurting real bad, right?
Yeah.
And then I also, the last image I saw, because it knocked me out, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it was just a sudden jerk of my lanyard,
Uh-huh.
stopping, or I actually still have the flight helmet too that I was wearing that day. And
Yeah.
there's a little dent in the back, um, that I basically got hit in the head too with one of the blades spinning around, right?
Oh my gosh.
So probably the combination of those two is probably what knocked me out. But
Yeah.
I saw the helicopter like falling slow motion and me
Mm-hmm.
going backwards in slow motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Separating each other out. So that was like my last image I saw before I passed out. So,
What was the thoughts going through your brain when all that happened?
um, like the first thought whenever we heard like the pop, I was like, man, well, we're in a helicopter, like we can just sit here and hover, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't think nothing else. And then when I saw it like us separating out, I'm like, well, I guess this is kind of how I die, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like because you hear stories all the time, like um, everything goes in slow motion,
Yeah.
and that was part of it. And I was like, well, I guess this is it. So like I'm going. My I guess my thought process was, well, I'm going to heaven, and they're going that way.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, bro. That's crazy, dude. I can't even imagine. So was it pilot error or?
Yeah, that's what the NTSB and uh, the um, the other one. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't
Mhm.
want to say Futures Farmers of America, so that ain't it. But FAA,
Okay.
they determined that it was pilot error. So
Pilot error.
yeah.
Wow, man. I had an incident similar like that in the late 90s. And he was a good friend of mine. He was a corpsman. He was a force reconnaissance Marine.
Okay.
And they were doing a shipboard takedown. What I believe they had just put some new skirts on the ships to keep sailors from jumping off when they're going on Westpac, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to go on Westpac. So they would jump off the ships, right? So they
Okay.
can, not go on these deployments. Well, they
Right.
decided to put these nets to catch them, to keep them from doing this stuff. And anyhow, long story short, new pilot, green pilot coming in. Here comes this high speed, low drag team, force reconnaissance, probably some of the best guys I've ever worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up real, it was an over the horizon type deal, coming up real close to the ship. When he went up, whatever reason, they said he didn't calculate his rotors, and
Yeah.
he went right into that netting and he got caught up,
Oh
and
no.
all of them went down, and
Mm.
they are all strapped in with those 4-point harnesses, and he
Yeah.
was able to get loose. But he said, man, he said, as soon as that helicopter hit the water, it created like a vacuum, and it just
Yeah.
started sucking him down. And he said he could feel his brothers just trying to grab at his boots, the ones that didn't get free, and he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
help them, but he couldn't because it had created a suction with the helicopter going down. He said that the sky just disappeared in the water, and it just started getting real dark, and he just remembers hearing his brother screaming. And it was horrible, man. It was awful to hear him tell that story, you know what I mean? But crazy how fast in a blink of an eye life can be just taken from you is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. For
How did
sure.
how did that affect you, brother? Like, do you still have, like, if you don't mind me asking, do you still have like nightmares and stuff like that, like survivor's guilt or anything?
I still got some survivor's guilt. They diagnosed me with PTSD,
Okay.
survivor's guilt, adjustment disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so the result of the crash is I had lost my left elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it basically shattered it out, right?
Yeah.
And I was left-handed also. So trying to adjust to doing everything right-handed because I couldn't use my hand or my arm really.
Yeah.
Um, so they diagnosed me with PTSD, adjustment disorder, survivor's guilt. Because even though I wasn't in control, the type of person I am, like I felt like I should have tried to save my buddy that we lost in the crash.
Yeah.
Even though I couldn't have done nothing about it, right?
Yeah.
So that was probably the hardest thing. Um, and I'm still working on it today. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I've been in therapy off and on. They've helped me out quite a bit. Um, let's see, when I went, so back then, let's see, it was 2018. So about 2019, there
Mm-hmm.
was this new study that come out. It was called MDER.
Yes.
So yeah, so that really helped me out quite a bit with that therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if anybody's listening, they want to get in on that, I encourage them 100% to get in on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped out quite a bit. So we did that, and that actually just helped me understand like I wasn't in control of things,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened. So the best thing I can do is just try to focus on living my life and just remember the guy that we lost and the good things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not focus on the bad.
Mm. Yeah, no, that EMDR training is pretty amazing. Um, Great therapy. They use it for the trauma, right?
Yes.
I know other veterans that are using that as well.
Hmm.
It's a great great way to deal with that trauma. Everybody thinks of trauma as, something that happens to you while in war. And it's not, you know what I mean? It could be from an abusive marriage, it
Hmm.
could be from your father just totally just beating you up and stuff like that, and the trauma from childhood. You know what I mean? It could be from um, a violent crime.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I had an incident when I was younger where I got stabbed by a 21-year-old and I was 14. And I never knew I needed any kind of therapy because we're taught, you don't cry, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it started following me the whole entire time. I developed a chip on my shoulder. It started affecting my relationships, all this
Hmm.
different stuff, you know what I mean? So I needed to go to some kind of therapy and started to face that pain that I needed to deal with, to overcome it.
Yeah, that brings up a good point too, because so I saw one doctor,
Hmm.
and they just diagnosed me with like adjustment disorder and survivor's guilt, nothing major, right? Those are kind of like I guess the stepchildren or stepbrothers and sisters of PTSD.
Hmm.
Uh, so I saw that doctor for probably about a month, and
Hmm.
then I'm like, all right, this really isn't going anywhere. So we kind of stopped seeing him. Well, my wife now, she saw the signs of, you know, the outlashes I was doing to the family,
Hmm.
taking everything out on them. And, they say that, you know, you take out your hurt and your pain on the ones you love, the closest ones to you, right?
Yeah.
So she basically put her foot down and was told me, she's like, you're either gonna go get help again or I'm done. I'm walking out the door.
Yeah.
And we'd been married for about 6 years at the time.
Hmm.
That really like hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, oh man, like, all right, I guess
Hmm.
let's do it then. So then that's when I got introduced to that MDER or MEDR
Hmm.
treatment and stuff like that. So I'm telling you, it really helped me out quite a bit. So
I'm glad that she did that to you because I did a podcast with Andy Marr. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with Andy Marr, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. He works with the Warriors Angels Foundation and treatment for men that have had traumatic brain trauma, right?
okay.
And the whole podcast premise was that fathers who suffer from PTSD, right, how they are able to transfer that to their children. And I'll
Mm,
give you an example. There was this study from the University of Austin that had this one U.S. Marine who came back from war. And needless to say, he took his daughter, beautiful day, like a father should, father daughter outing, took her to the zoo. Well, the guy had a breakdown at the zoo, right? He
mm,
started going into full panic mode, um, totally just abandoned his daughter, crawled up underneath a vehicle, and was just in complete utter disarray, right? That left his daughter feeling abandoned and the issues that go along with that. One minute daddy's with you, next minute daddy's crawling up underneath the vehicle, freaking out, and you don't know what to do when you're that age. You know what I'm saying? So it is so important and imperative that fathers, we need to take care of ourselves, man. We do. We need to really, really get the help. That way we don't transfer it. There's a saying that I got from one of our podcast guests, and he said that pain pain that's not transformed is transferred. And it's
oh
absolutely
man.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Well, and it's so hard too because as men,
Hmm.
I'm almost 40 years old. So, we were taught never talk about our feelings, you know.
Hmm.
Be a man, man up. You'll be all right, you'll be fine. So we never talked about it. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably the hardest thing is trying to get my boys now to tell me what's on their mind, let's talk it out and stuff and see what's wrong and how we can fix it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What have you seen that's helped you do that? Like, do you feel that just them building trust in you and they're able to open up, or what
Yeah,
have you seen?
I would say the trust, yeah. Showing
Trust.
them that even though you have to come down hard on them,
Yeah.
sometimes as a father, then maybe revisiting it like 30 minutes later, maybe an hour later, and having a calmer conversation with them, like
Hmm.
letting them know your side of things, and then trying to figure out their side of things of how it got to that point, when you had to
Hmm.
be hard on them. So, because sometimes, we see it as them being disobedient to us as fathers, right? But
Yeah.
in all reality, everybody's different, right? So
Hmm.
they kind of work on their schedule a little bit compared to our schedule
Hmm.
as fathers. So trying to, well, like I said earlier, taking bits and pieces and making it your own, right? Your own
Yeah.
life and stuff. So trying to show them, hey, sometimes when mom asks you to do something, it's easier just to get up and do it, especially with the wife, because she's not happy, ain't nobody happy. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, just trying to figure out how they're thinking and stuff, and
Hmm.
seeing what's really important to them. Because whether it's like picking up their room or something like that, they may not think it's very important at
Hmm.
that moment, but trying to just turn their perspective a little bit to show them like, hey, it is important to, keep your room clean or take the trash out, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're training them too. It's the whole point of it is all training. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well,
So
it's just
I,
like your line or your apprentices, you're training them day in and day out, so it rolls into the family. It
yep.
does. Boys and your daughters and stuff. So yeah.
No, I like that you said that because I agree with you 100%. Training apprentices is no different than training your kids. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's consistency that works. You know what I mean? You got to consistently be on them and not lecturing them all the time because that could that can damage a kid, right? But
Right. Yeah.
being able to judge where they're at and
Yeah.
seeing what they need at that moment. Are they confused? Because if they're confused and you're yelling at them, I mean, what do you think's going to happen? Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know if I was in that position, I wouldn't want to get up and do anything, because
Hmm.
I would just like soul up. I'm like, I ain't doing it till you stop yelling.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Especially for them strong-willed kids, because they will
Yes.
not. If they're strong-willed, they will just lock up and they're going to go into battle with you. And
Yes. Yeah.
it's crazy. And those strong-willed kids, we got to understand that they are a gift from God, and that's a gift God gave them, and they are natural leaders. In this
Right.
world, everybody wants to be a leader. Well, they are natural leaders, and that's why they question everything. And we got to see
Yes.
that, you know?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, you talked about faith and how it seemed to have this significant role in your life, brother. Can you share with us how your faith in God helped you to navigate your recovery process, bro? If you don't mind.
Yeah. Man, it's been tough,
Hmm.
at times because Romans 8:28
Yeah.
has been probably one of my best verses that I stick with day
Hmm.
in and day out. Um, and it's all things work together for those that love God, right? And are
Yeah.
called according to his plan. So that's probably been the best thing that has helped me stay out of the trenches
Hmm.
and down that dark road with this, with my accident. And, seeing how my family, my wife and kids have actually loved me through
Hmm.
this and encouraged me. Um, you know, I mentioned that I was left-handed, and basically my left arm had taken the hit, and been affected.
Yeah.
So struggling to do everything right-handed has been one of the biggest overcome, obstacles I had to deal with too, right?
Hmm.
And the simplest things, I mean, butter and toast, or trying to cut something. I mean, I
Hmm.
still struggle with it today. but it's just become a part of my life now.
Yeah.
But we recently, before the accident, I was
Mm.
working out quite a bit, right? And then after the accident, I hadn't worked out at all. And so we started working out together as a family again, and seeing them be there with me and encouraging me,
Yeah.
has really helped out. So I really feel like God has placed my wife with me for the long haul.
Hmm.
We both recently been divorced, so it's kind of a blended family.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, Romans 8:28, man, it all works out together for the good.
Hmm.
So that's just trying to stay positive, find the good in it. Is the hardest thing, but once you slowly see the good in it,
Hmm.
bits and pieces of it, it's really helped me out quite a bit.
Hmm.
From those guys, being there on that Sunday that when they wasn't supposed to be there, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and then when my family had got the call, that the helicopter went down, um, usually I was on the side of it working. So she got the call that the bird had went down and somebody was missing.
Hmm.
So immediately they thought it was me. So for an hour and a half, they thought it was me, right?
Yeah.
So I can just imagine how she felt. So they made the journey down to New Orleans where this happened at, and
Hmm.
they would go out to eat at dinner time and stuff like that. Kind of let me rest at night. And one of the waitresses at one of the local restaurants, um, you know, she had seen like God was tugging on her heart
Hmm.
to um, present a rosary to my wife. I mean, we're Southern Baptist, but you
Yeah.
know, um, but this waitress, she's like, "Hey, like, here's this rosary. Like, this has helped me out quite a bit, and I feel like God is telling me to give it to you now." And so, like I said before, with God being in this whole accident,
Yeah.
just as the story involves, you can just see it constantly of God was showing up, here and there to, I guess, help lessen the blow of
Yeah.
the accident a little bit, maybe.
No, I've heard of similar stories, and I've experienced that myself too, where it's almost like God's with you, when he's walking through that with you, right? He's constantly reassuring you as a father, right? It's scary. We don't know, the end result, but he's there with you every step of the way. And it's almost like he's putting these little breadcrumbs to be like, don't worry. I got you. I got
Yes.
you. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
And we don't understand why. We can never understand why. The Bible says that though we look through a stained glass, right, everything's going to be
Hmm.
revealed to us when we are called to meet our maker, and he'll show us the big picture, right? His ways are not our ways. That's something that I always tell people when they ask the question, why? You
Hmm.
know, we may not ever understand why, but we
Right.
can trust, according to Romans 8:28, that
Hmm.
he will cause all things to work for good for those who
Yeah.
are in Christ Jesus, right? And called according to his purpose. So your purpose isn't done, brother. You're still
Right.
here. You got a story that you're sharing now, and you're called to bring
Hmm.
hope with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's been on my mind for quite a while, to
Mm-hmm.
get this out, because there's news articles, and I mean, you know how the linemen are, right? It's
Yeah.
telephone, telegraph, lineman,
Right.
and it's the telephone game, right? So by the time it gets back to you, somebody was doing backflips out of a helicopter, trying to see what could happen.
Yeah.
Um, so I want the story to be out there, what truly happened, you know, and also show that you know God's real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people don't believe in Him. I mean, let's just be honest. But
Yeah.
seeing like how I should have died, like I should not be living today, um, and have a functioning left arm,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to me that showed God's real. I mean,
Yeah.
truthfully.
No, and even just having your family come together and support you during your recovery, I mean, that had
Yeah.
to definitely impact your healing journey as well,
Yeah, it did quite a bit, because here's the thing, God or my wife, she's like, she stuck through me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest, she didn't have to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because I was a lineman, I was making a lot of money, taking care of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I took about a 50, $60,000 pay cut, to go into the safety side of things, to be able to stay in the trade. Um,
Yeah.
so that's huge for a family, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so for her to stay by my side, that really, really showed me she was in it for the long haul, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So, and the kids encouraging me to get out there and play catch with them or basketball,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's times that I'd tell them, no, I can't do that, but I need to get out of that mindset,
Yeah.
you know, then show them like, hey, I can still do this. And that's just part of God's work, God's plan, is
Mm-hmm.
just, show them like no matter how difficult life can get, whatever the devil tries to throw at us, you know, God's still real. He's in there for us. And,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to make it all work out.
Amen. I agree 100%, brother. Now, you said you went into the safety side of this, so advocating for safety is now a mission of yours.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the steps you've taken to raise awareness about safety to make a positive impact that you've done, bro?
So, one of the things I tell all my linemen and apprentices that I deal with day in and day out
Mm-hmm.
is it's not if, it's when.
Okay.
Something will happen out there, right? Um, so we need to build the capacity. We need to make sure our job sites are safe. So when that something happens,
Mm-hmm.
you guys can go home and hug your family,
Mm,
because I don't want anybody else's family to get that phone call that my family got, right?
yeah.
And the unknown for an hour and a half. That was the hardest part, in my opinion.
Mm,
I mean, we've got these safety rules in place for a reason, right? They're written in
yeah.
blood. I mean, let's be honest though, nobody likes them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when I was on the line, I knew about them. I followed the safety rules a little bit, but I thought I was invincible, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of with that statement, looking back a little bit, I feel like it was God, humbling me a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
showing me that that I'm not invincible, and in what really matters. I mean, yeah, let's face it, money matters a little bit, but what really matters is your family at home,
Yeah.
especially when you're traveling, um, and out away from them for 40, 60, 70 days, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah, so I really try to get that into their head. It's like, look, you can be the best lineman, the best apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
It's the person next to you that could make a mistake and could affect your life, because honestly, and I don't blame the pilot one bit, you
Mm-hmm.
know, whatever it happened. But I wasn't in control of the helicopter, and I'm like a bystander, of the result of
Yeah.
someone else's mistake, you know. So I try to get that in their head, and it's
Yeah.
hard sometimes because linemen are stubborn, right? They're hard headed,
Yeah.
but I mean, at the end of the day, like when they truly see it and it's someone they work with like close to them, when they hear
Yeah.
about an accident, then I think it turns on a light bulb for them.
Yeah. No, we never understand the impact that we have, when we decide to, well, even if it's a mistake, you know what I'm saying? Let
Right.
alone
Yeah.
cutting corners.
Hmm.
I mean, just think about that. That pilot walked away from it, but yet he has a fatality and an
Yeah.
injury. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And he's got to live with that,
Yeah.
He has to explain to that man's family, I messed up.
Hmm.
And as a result, your husband, your son, your father, your whatever isn't coming home today.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sucks, bro.
Oh yeah. And me and the pilot talk, about once a month, once every couple of months, still. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he he constantly tells me he's sorry. Um, but I tell him like, hey, look, like it happens,
Yeah.
and it was funny too. I don't know if it's really funny, but we talk about the good and things, right?
Yeah.
So he wasn't a Christian before the accident.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're laying out there in the swamp, um, waiting on somebody to come out there and get us, and I can tell I'm on the verge of dying, knocking on death's door. My mouth is really dry, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, I don't know if you would call it crying out or
Yeah.
just a loud voice, but I'm like, God, please don't let me die out here, multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then probably a year later, the pilot texts me and tells me that he got saved and he's read the book, the Bible, about three or four times front to back.
Mm-hmm.
So, that really, really touched my heart, quite a
Yeah.
bit. So, because like having the conversations with him before the accident, like
Mm-hmm.
about God a little bit, and knowing like I knew he wasn't saved. Um, and I'm not one to push God on anybody.
Yeah.
If God opens up the door, I'll talk about it, but it's nothing that I'm gonna like use the Holy Bible and beat somebody with it, right?
Right.
Um, so that him coming to God and getting saved and stuff, that really, really touched my heart quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You never know how God's going to use an incident like that, something that we deem tragic for his glory, right?
Right. Yeah.
So no, that's amazing. That's awesome that he did come to the saving grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Um Chance, we mentioned that you're a father of four and now a new grandfather. How has your perspective on fatherhood and family evolved through all these different life challenges that you had to go through, bro? How does it changed?
When I was on the line, uh,
Uh-huh.
I would stay working constantly.
Okay.
Um, only come home like just for major holidays. I'd miss a lot of birthdays,
Mm-hmm.
but because the thought process I had was, well, if I make enough money, then I'm supporting the family and I'm making them happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not understanding the backside of that where you're missing football games, baseball games, birthdays, stuff like that. We
Mm-hmm.
were able to come home on Christmas and Thanksgiving, stuff, major holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now after the accident, it's changed my perspective quite a bit, you
Mm-hmm.
know, being there for them, instead of um saying no, I've got to work, you know, understand, showing them that hey, family comes first, no
Yeah.
matter what, because I mean, let's be honest, at the end of the day, any company out there, if something happens to us, they're gonna have our job posted by
Oh yeah.
Monday. You know what I mean? And our family is gonna suffer for the rest of their lives, because they don't have us as their dad, the father there
Mm-hmm.
to help support them and be there, to do family outings and stuff like that. So it was funny because my wife told me as I was laying there in the hospital bed, she's like, "You're going to start taking family vacations whether you like it or not." Uh,
Right.
so once I got healed up, we took our first family vacation together, and that was probably the best decision that I was forced into. So
No, man, that's amazing, how your perspective has changed and, you know, you were able to listen to your wife when she says you need to make these changes, you need to start going on vacation and stuff like that. That's a
Right.
heart that's humbled.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I went through what we had to go through in our relationship, when I almost lost my wife in 2018, prior to that, I didn't want to hear anything. It was like, what do you want from me? I'm paying all the bills. This is as good as it's going to get. That's it. Stop complaining. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, a tragedy like that happens that God allows, and it changes your whole world around. It's almost like someone's pulled the sheet off of your table.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, there's nothing you can do. You could fight against it. You can complain. You can take up a victim mentality and woe is me. Or you could submit to the process and just be like, all right, God, I'm tired of fighting you. I submit. Your will be done, not mine. Right. We all know that prayer. That's a crazy thing. Since we were born, right? We've all heard the Our Father who art in heaven. You know what I mean? And when we're praying that, one of the key components in there is your will be done on earth, right? It's not our will, it's his will. And a part of his will sometimes has this process that we got to go through, and we may not like that process.
No. And it's the hardest prayer to pray. If we're being honest with each other, right?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, because if you don't truly mean it, then his will won't be done for us. So it's a hard prayer to pray for sure.
One of the things I always liked, that I've always heard, and it sticks with me when I read the Bible, is that God is looking for someone he can bless.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's literally looking for people he can bless, dude. And God blesses obedience, not sacrifice. I used to justify providing for my family and doing all this stuff and saying, I'm making sacrifices for my family.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, God doesn't require sacrifice. God requires obedience. In all aspects of our life.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's something that needs to be taught more. Because we all say, I'm sacrificing. I'm going to church on Sunday. I'm sacrificing. Or I'm tithing. I'm sacrificing. And it's like, hey, man, God don't want that. God wants obedience, brother.
Yeah.
If you're faithful with a little bit, you'll be faithful with more. Right.
Right. Yeah. And the crazy thing is too, he didn't he called not the best people, right? In the Bible. He called the ones that were heathens.
Right.
So
lineman.
Crazy. Yeah, lineman, right? Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's what some people don't understand a little bit, in my opinion, is that they don't understand that God didn't call the most spiritual people.
No.
Because he uses the ones that are rough around the edges to do the works of him. And it's easier to do that way, in my opinion. When I was traveling quite a bit, I would go to the bars and drink. It was crazy because I don't really like to tell this story, but God's telling me to tell it, right? So we was in the bar and stuff, and just out of the blue, this guy comes over and we start talking about God in the bar, of all things. So it's just like, you don't think God would use an area like that, but he does. It's nuts, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, especially when he's trying to get a hold of you. It's like a check engine light. There's all these signs, and if you don't adhere to that check engine light, something drastic's gonna happen.
Exactly. Yes.
It's paying attention to detail. It's something that we're taught in the military. It's something that I teach from indoctrination, from the apprenticeship, at the beginning, I stress. Anybody knows me, I stress. Paying attention to detail, and that's in all aspects of your life.
It is. Yeah, most definitely.
Now, is there any specific moments or experiences during your recovery journey that kind of stand out to you, particular, impactful, or transformative, or anything that you can think of?
I would say probably I got a couple tattoos after
Okay.
the accident, and one of them is perseverance, and the other one is resilience, right?
Mm,
Um, and they kind of, in my opinion, they kind of go hand in hand with each other a little bit,
hmm
right? Um, so from basically being on my deathbed, and the perseverance of overcoming and not going down that dark road that I mean, I could have got addicted to pain pills. I mean, I was on all sorts of different things, right, for
hmm
pain. And so just having that mentality and that drive to be in those spots on that dark road for a little bit, but then quickly going back, turning back around and getting out of those dark spots and trying to find the good in things, again. So
hmm
it was funny because I had asked my pastor one time, I'm like, is it okay to question why, why me, right?
Yeah.
And to ask God, and he's like, yeah, it's okay, you can do that, but don't do it as a blaspheming type of deal, right? And
Yeah.
curse God of why it happened, right? And I may find out on earth. If
Mhm.
not, I'll find out when I cross those pearly gates, right?
Yeah. Right.
And figure out then. Um, so yeah, those would probably be the things that stick out the most.
hmm
So yeah, and then also like showing my kids it's okay to struggle with some things, in
hmm
life, and even my wife, showing her that it's okay to struggle, but eventually, you got to put on your big boy pants and move on. Don't stay there.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing. That's all you can do.
No, I agree with you. Can't stay in that victim state forever. We gotta persevere, like you said, and move forward. Um,
Right. Yeah.
it's life is hard. There's gonna be
It
so many
is.
challenges and struggles that we're gonna go through, and it's all about our perspective, right?
Hmm.
And how we're gonna go through it, right? Are we gonna go through as a victim or a victor?
Right. Yeah. And I know I would rather be the victor because I
hmm
mean, you see so many people out there play the victim card so much. It's like the boy that cried wolf, right?
Yeah.
At some point, no one's gonna pay attention to them.
Nope. Absolutely. And you see that everywhere. I mean, gosh darn, dude, we have so many groups out there that are calling for this, calling for that. And it's like, man, if you only knew who you truly were,
Right.
what happened to you back then
Hmm.
shouldn't determine where you're at now. You have a
Yes.
chance to change that, right? And I even liken that to even like parenthood, right?
Hmm.
We can't continue to use that excuse. Well, this is how my dad showed me. This is all I know. You know,
Right.
the battles that we choose to run away from and not face and conquer are the battles that our kid we're passing those down to our children, dude, and they're gonna have to stand
Yep.
up, right? It's generational curses, if alcoholism runs in your family, guess what, dude? Someone's gonna have to fight that battle,
Yep. They are.
and if you choose to run away from it and cower away from it, guess what? Your kids are gonna be dealt with that. It
Hmm.
doesn't go away,
No, it
you
doesn't
know.
at all.
We're gonna have to face it. We can't keep running.
Yep. Exactly.
Now, what is a bit of advice you can tell somebody right now who's going through it, especially during this time, this holiday season that's coming up, brother, if they're feeling low Is there any kind of message you want to give somebody right now?
I would say there's a couple of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
One, keep fighting through the struggles, keep fighting the good fight, because it's going to pass, they're just saying this too shall pass, and that's
Yeah.
true, right? Um, and the storm won't last forever, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, when God was talking about in the Bible, it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights, Can you imagine what type of storm that was back then, right?
Right.
And then, telling Noah to build an ark, the earth is going to flood. So it's crazy, right? And
Yeah.
um, just stay fighting. My grandma recently died about 10 years or so. Been a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm.
And those little Bible inserts that you have the obituary on the back. So we put on her thing this quote, and it's so true. Um, God didn't promise days without pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joy without sorrow, or sun without rain. But God did promise strength for the day, comfort for the tears, and light for the way. And those who believe in His kingdom of love, He answers their faith with His peace from above.
Mm.
So that's I've always wanted to get that tattooed on me somewhere, because it's so true,
Yeah.
especially the first few sentences in that. You know, you're gonna have pain, but it's not gonna last forever. You
Yeah.
know, it's gonna be sun, and then there's gonna be rainy days, but guess what? It's not gonna last. So I would say, man, just keep on fighting. It's all you can
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, there will be light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm.
It doesn't seem like that at first, but there will be.
Amen, brother. You guys hear that? This is from Chance. Such an awesome time to have him come on here and tell his story of resilience and how he survived, going through his traumatic injury and choosing to be a victor, not a victim. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season coming up. And like Chance said, man, this too shall pass. Just like the sun rises and sets every single day, rest assured what you're going through isn't going to last forever. You got to see that, guys. This is Dave from the Show Up Dad with my special guest, Chance, here. We love you guys. You guys take care. Take care of those beautiful families. And Chance, if there's any way they can get a hold of you, if they have any questions, give you the opportunity right now to share that with our audience, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Uh, type in my name, Chance Mills, or should be able to find me. If not, you guys can reach out to me via text. My phone number is 417-576-5868. I'll be happy to go into more detail. I'm a great listener. If somebody's struggling with something,
Mhm.
that's the hardest part, is like finding someone to talk to,
Yes,
in my opinion. So talk about your problems, get help the best you can. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you once again, brother. God bless you. And thank you for coming on and sharing what you do to be successful. And we appreciate you. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. God bless you.